Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. It's time to have a look at a post from Gaijin about responding to your feedback on separate battle ratings. So basically the last week or so they made a bunch of posts about what they're going to be doing with battle ratings, changing them between air and specifically ground. So therefore certain vehicles will be at different BRs. And as always, they always ask for feedback on these things. And now we get to go through the feedback and agree, disagree, talk, communicate, whatever it is. Right now, when it comes to a lot of the things, a lot of the justifications kind of annoy me because instead of going off efficiency and statistics, it seems like they're being very much swayed by opinion. And opinion is very dangerous, especially when it comes to analytics. The human element of stuff is usually the one which is a little bit raucous compared to others. This post was written by Stoner, so I'll leave a link to it in the description. And it also talks about a bunch of future content as well. So there's a little bit of everything. Now, to start off with, something that's really annoyed me from looking at this post to start with, and I'm going to mention it to you as well. If you look at this picture, it's massively asymmetrical. And as a person who seems to have a bit of the old oddity in the head, that annoys the hell out of me. So just thought I'd let you know. Just so when you see it, you'll see the same thing. So what do they do? Well, they first of all talk about how they do battle ratings. Now, what you might remember is about a week ago in the War Thunder Nostalgia series, we actually talked about how they do battle ratings, because they even talked about it in that video itself, where Kirill Yudintsev, who's the creative director and one of the two twins, that's at the head of Gaijin, obviously the other one being Anton Yudintsev, he talked about the fact that battle ratings are based on efficiency. And efficiency is a bunch of different things. And just because a specific vehicle is at a specific battle rating does not mean that it has equal kind of weight in the different areas of the battle compared to a vehicle of the same BR. So, for example, if you compare like an F8U2 to something like an A10A early or an A10A, I believe it is the premium, they're very similar BRs, or maybe even the same, but they have two completely different roles on the battlefield. And this is something that can be quite hard to understand, that they're at the same BR, because technically they do completely different stuff. So if you're interested in reading the same thing for the 20th, 30th, maybe even 50th time at this point about how they balance battle ratings, this is perfect for you. There's 5 paragraphs here, and it talks about absolutely everything that they deal with. They even give examples, which is quite fun. So yeah, simple as that. It's worth reading. The first time I remember this being a huge controversy was actually during the time where they were trying to move down the M48 when all that went on, and they had to make a similar post basically explaining to people how they do battle ratings. So yeah, as simple as. So let's go through the different changes that they put forward because of the fact that things have to constantly move, and I'm sorry about that. I don't know how I moved that, but there you go. Sorted now. So let's have a look, right? So number 1, Q5L. Q5L is not going to 10.7 in ground. Instead, it's going to 10.3. And I'm guessing that's just based on feedback. It's also going to 9.3 instead of 9.0 in air. And the reason they're putting it at 9.3 is because it's going to get countermeasures. So that will obviously help it in ground and also help it in air. I feel like it going up to 10.7 was fine. It's got very good flight characteristics and also very good guided bombs with the pod, but, it doesn't have any countermeasures. Hey presto, though, it's now going to get countermeasures. So, yeah, it seems a little bit odd. I think it would have probably been best when putting the vehicle to 9.3, they might have mentioned that it was going to get countermeasures, so then it would make a little bit more sense. But no, we have to wait a week for that. Don't know why. But I think overall the Q5L is fine when it comes to this stuff. If you don't know about the Chinese tech tree, you won't realize that there aren't any 10.3 ground vehicles anyway. So you'll have to run this thing at 10.7 anyway. So it won't make a difference between if this is 10.7 or 10.3. So yeah, as simple as. You will still have to just run it at 10.7. Now, the Jaguar GR1A and the Buccaneer, the good old S2B, which is the new Buccaneer that they added, they've decided to not increase the battle rating of these attack aircraft in ground battles. However, please note that when increasing the maximum battle rating of ground vehicles, the battle rating of these aircrafts may increase so that they both remain within the ground setup, which is something that we do not afford the Q5L for some reason by putting it at 10.7. Because these vehicles, the Buccaneer S2B and the Jaguar, actually have quite a nice battle rating around them, if you didn't know. Sorry, it's a little bit zoomed in, but you can see from here with Great Britain, the Buccaneer is at 10.3, and 10.3 is fantastic for Britain. It has the Vickers, it has the Challengers, the Stormer, even the TTD, the Bishmar, and then also the Challenger DS. It's a fantastic lineup. Plus, also on top of it, you have the Lynx and the other Lynx, which is great, right? Same with the GR1A. So, you know, you're allowed to actually run these vehicles at 10.3, which is just fantastic. Isn't that really good? Why have they not done that with the Q5L? I don't know. For some reason, it's different. You know, they have to move it around, so it can't, you know, just fit in there. It's very odd. Instead, they have to lower it for some reason. But you're gonna run it there anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Anyway, so going back to it, it's what they've noted here is obviously BR decompression. So the idea is as the top BRs go up, eventually everything else follows, and then you have a nice decompression. So when BR decompression happens, these vehicles might go up. They also might go down, depending on what they add to the game in the future. So this is completely redundant because of how the game works. Once again, this is just placation. It's very, very simple to understand how this works, right? When the battle ratings change, when the range increases, that means that there'll be more variety and more BRs which things can be put at, therefore technically balancing them better, right? That's all they've put there. This could be said about any single vehicle in the game. Then, various variants of the F-16 and the nets. It was kind of odd that they were going down. Didn't really matter that they were going down because of the current ground battle 11.7 setup, but it says we've removed the reduction of the battle rating of all variants of the F-16A to 11.7 in ground battles, since these aircraft combine their strike and fighter capabilities well. Well, that's very true. Apart from the ADF, but for some reason the ADF can't be allowed to go down. The nets will instead be lowered to 12.0, as it's comparable to the rest of the F-16As and its strike capabilities, which is fair enough. You know, if they want to put that there, that's all good. But the problem is, as I said before, if you have a look at the good old ADF, the ADF is straight up only... sorry you can't see it, but basically the ADF is only a... it's only a vehicle which actually deals with the air-to-air combat stuff. So why is that one not going down? What is the reasoning for that? I don't know. Seems a bit odd. Now, so first of all, the first set, completely fine with. Okay, there's no issues with this. I think overall it's pretty decent, right? Obviously, the Q5L stuff is fine. The Jaguar stuff, the F-16 stuff, all makes sense apart from the ADF. Now we get into some wacky tobacco stuff, okay? Regarding strike variants of the Tornado, because somebody, I'm guessing, was complaining about the Tornado, and bomb carriers in general, okay? So, one of the problems that you will have seen in Aerialistic, and not really necessarily with the Tornado, but with a bunch of other vehicles, is the simple fact that fighters hit bases and then go on to fight. This usually happens with premiums. The reason why people do it is because it's easier to grind. I've seen this personally with the A5C. I've also seen it with the F4S, which is probably the biggest perpetrator of this playstyle, and also other vehicles such as the J35XS. For some reason, they have targeted the Tornado with this, probably because it's a standard tech tree vehicle in most cases, and therefore is easier to kind of show the problem. So, because people are getting too much score from bombing bases and then going on to get fighters, and because they take mission score into account when making battle ratings, this leads to a bit of a problem. And according to them, the only way to fix it is to reduce the amount of economic progression or rewards that you get from damaging and destroying bases. So instead of just, dealing with the problem with just those fighters, maybe changing around their rewards, even though a lot of them are premiums, they are talking about the fact that they have to completely nuke the amount that you get from bases because of this fact. Which, by the way, they've already done in the past, right? Which is why people use rockets nowadays and not bombers. So therefore, you would just have this horrific scenario where unless they decided to make different rules for each type of aircraft, you're going to have a real problem making any ends meet with any bomber or strike aircraft which has to go up against these things. How about you ask the people who fly the Buccaneer S-2B in Air Realistic how that's going for them? Right? How about you ask people who fly the A7 and want to, play the strike aircraft role, want to bomb our bases, want to hit AI in the middle of the map? How does that go? You get absolutely hammered, and all of the fighters, which I've just listed there, mainly premiums, end up taking everything from you before you can ever get there. Now, the simple way of actually fixing this is making it so the amount of rewards that you get from an action is based on what type of vehicle you are in. Therefore, if you are in a fighter, you get less rewards from destroying bases and maybe destroying ground targets compared to actually destroying aircraft. And then if you're in a strike aircraft, you get a kind of variety of both. And then if you're in a bomber, you get more rewards from destroying bases and, AI stuff. And then if you are able to destroy a fighter, you get less rewards. So you make the rewards more specific on the action that you do in the battle. But instead, they're going for massive changes across the board to affect everything instead of just reducing the little areas where it is a problem. And that makes it very annoying. What is hilarious, though, is what they're going to do is they are going to make it so you vote on it. Because whenever they're making a controversial decision anymore, the first thing that they do is they do not make it themselves. Okay? They do not make it themselves. I don't know if you've noticed over the last year, since the player union stuff and since the review bombing stuff, what they now do is they just do polls for anything that is seen as controversial. And you may see this as a way of being kind and letting the community get involved, which is very true if they followed what the poll said. Instead, what happens is if you vote no on something, they rejig it and bring it back. What we call this is the Schengen Agreement, and also with Ireland, and what happened with the Republic of Ireland with the EU. Not going to go into it right now. They basically had to vote multiple times on the same thing to try and get them to say yes, because everybody else was saying no, was saying yes, and they were the only guys who weren't. So they basically jerry-rigged it to try and get it through, but it doesn't matter. That's a completely separate topic. So when it comes to this, that's what they're doing, right? They give you the option to vote for it. And if you vote yes, overall, it goes through with the plan. If you vote no, they rejig it and then bring it back to you in a different way. And the simple fact is, it means that if stuff gets passed, hey presto, who do we blame? The community. And that's the whole point of it. It is moving blame, right? It's moving blame to different areas. It isn't designed to make it so it is more fair. It isn't designed to make it so it is, better for the general community, because depending on how they word stuff and also depending on how they implement it in the first place, this can actually be more negative. Remember when they brought in all of those changes like win-loss stuff, and when they made people vote on it, and the majority voted yes, which I'm still in favor of them. I think the decision made was great. They also, while bringing in those changes, brought in a bunch of other changes that weren't voted on. Now that right there is the problem, right? Which is why these voting things are generally not seen, at least by me, as great. I would personally prefer if they just stuck to their guns and instead made the decisions independently by themselves. They are paid to make these decisions. They have made these decisions for many years and done it very positively. So why would they want to remove blame from themselves? Have pride in your work and stop worrying about how people will react. If you make a good product, people enjoy it. That's exactly what War Thunder is right now. There is no need for placation. No need. Right, anyway, so based on what was written above, as of now, we're going to leave the strike variants of the Tornado at their current battle ratings in air battles. The battle rating of the Tornado, all the Tornadoes will not be lowered, and the battle rating of the IDS MFG and the IDS WTD61 will not increase to that of the other Tornadoes mentioned above. So they're basically just leaving them where they are. Which is fine, because as I said, they're not the problem. The problem is the F4S, it's the J35XS, it's the A5C, it's any premium, which is high BR, which has a multi-role function. So if you could focus on the things that are the problem, that would be fantastic, okay? That would be great, instead of scapegoating on a different set of vehicles. The AMX is hilarious. So, the AMX... If you haven't played high tier recently, the AMX is very strong. It has a lot of guided bombs and it has a thermal pod. It also doesn't have an afterburner, and at the BR that it's at, you have to rely on a lot of IR guided missiles in order to be able to hit it. The problem with this is without an afterburner, it creates a very small heat silhouette, and also it can go just above the battlefield from a very high elevation, right? So a lot of missile launchers can't hit it, and then also it hides from radar. So you just die from this thing you can't see. It's the problem with guided bombs, has been forever, which is why stuff like the A4 is going massively up. Not as much as it was going to, by the way. They're going up to 9.3 instead of 9.7. But yeah, as simple as. So what's hilarious about this post, right? So this right here. You know how if you go upwards, there's 5 paragraphs at the start of this, okay? 5 paragraphs where they talk about how they balance the game. They talk about efficiencies. They talk about, vehicle versus vehicle. They talk about if a vehicle is doing really well, they up its BR. If it's not doing too well, they lower its BR. But there are other factors at play. Now imagine you write 5 paragraphs and then you throw it completely out the window because some people complained. Now imagine you do that. That's what they're doing with the AMX. So the AMX, according to their statistics, is very, very good. There's a lot of people playing it, and its efficiency is huge, right? It's ridiculous, okay? Now, it was going up to 11.0. But now they've decided, right, to lower it to 10.7 and then monitor its effectiveness. You know what's hilarious, though? They already know it's going to go up again. We'd like to note that we're not expecting miracles here, and it's likely that this aircraft's efficiency will remain at very high levels even at 10.7. If this happens, it may face a further increase in planned battle ratings changes in the future. So they already know it's going to happen. And you know why I know this? Because the same thing happened with the Spitfire Mark 24. They held it back because people complained. And then in the next update, it just went up. Because it had to. They're doing the same thing with this. This is placation. This is silly. This is doing things in steps when it does not need to be done in steps. It should just be done. Right? It doesn't need all of these ridiculous things. Right? You are literally saying here, we are going against our better judgment because people have complained. You cannot live in that world as somebody who creates something. And you know what's even more ridiculous about this? Okay, once again, it has a lot of flyouts and its efficiency is more than twice the average for its BR. Exhibit B. Let's go down a little bit to the Super Étendard. In ground battles, the efficiency of this aircraft is too high to increase its battle rating by only 1 step, as its efficiency is almost 2 times higher than that of its contemporaries. So the Super Étendard is allowed to go up by two BR brackets, but the AMX isn't. Because I'm guessing people didn't complain enough about it. But don't worry, they're giving it the AS30L. Because for some reason it's needed. It doesn't have any tanks around it. You can't run any lineup around it at all. But don't worry, it's needed. But for some reason with the AMX, for this one it needs stepping stones. For the Super Étendard, No, no, no. It just needs to go. Right? So this thing, its efficiency is more than twice of the average, right? Twice the average. So times 2. The Super Étendard, the efficiency of the aircraft is too high to increase its battle rating by only 1 step. It's almost 2 times higher than its contemporaries. So, the AMX is more than twice, so more than 2 times better than its contemporaries, but the Super Étendard is almost 2 times higher than its contemporaries. But the Étendard has to go up by 2, and the AMX only goes up by 1. Make it make sense in my head. Right? Stick to your guns, please. Stop listening to people who only play these vehicles. Please, for the love of God. It is causing some horrific areas. There's a reason why for 2-3 months we've been in this CAS hell because you haven't brought in the separate battle rating changes. And now, with more of these changes, you are making it take longer in order for any of this to actually take effect. We are going to be sat here after the next update, after 2 or 3 more months, where finally the BR changes have come in. 6 months after they were talked about. And by then, you're going to have another major update, another major minor update in August as well, with a bunch of the roadmap stuff. And also some random fighters that they've talked about they're going to add as well before this update. And you don't think any of those are going to affect any of this stuff. But you're just waiting on some vehicles, and other vehicles you're just hammering into the ground. It's so confusing. Because what it seems to me, right, when it comes to a lot of these things, what I see and what I look at is you are going, okay, we're getting feedback about these things. There is more feedback about this than this. Therefore, we prioritize that. Which is completely fine, if you want to. Which is completely fine. But it means that you are going to have a problem. Where because certain vehicles are going to be talked about more than others, you are going to balance them not as well as others. Because you are listening to people who have an invested interest in the vehicle being good. Because they play it, not against it. And that is what we have seen time and time again over the last few years. Which is no good. Right, let's carry on into the fighters with weak strike capabilities. What is hilarious about this title is it has nothing to do with the vehicles that it shows. Right, so when you read this title, right, you're probably thinking about like the MiG-21, right? Or you're probably thinking about, I don't know, maybe like the F-5A, maybe something like, once again, the F-8E, or the Meteors, maybe that. No, they're talking about the A6E tram, the SU-25 and 25K, the A10A late, and the A10A, and the Super Étendard. Which I don't understand why. I'm guessing the idea is they put this paragraph here for no apparent reason, apart from it should have been in a different area of the tech tree. Like, for some reason, this should not be here. Instead, this should be in a different paragraph, because this has nothing to do with this. Okay? It's very confusing. Right, let's start off with the A6 tram. So, once again, it's another vehicle with a bunch of guided weapons that are very efficient, and also, once again, doesn't have an afterburner, does not have a high heat signature, so can outrange pretty much all of the radar AAs that it fights. So you know what's hilarious? Right. This aircraft has a large selection of guided weapons that can effectively engage enemy ground targets. Effectively is a word, yes. However, at its new battle rating, this aircraft will, among other threats, encounter longer range air defenses. This thing is going up to like 10.7, I think it is, or 10.3. So we're not going nuts, right? We're also right. So it's gonna do this, right? So it's gonna get right. So it can outrange the stuff that it's fighting now. So we're upping its BR. So they don't get outranged. Isn't that great? Oh, by the way, we're also gonna add something to its arsenal in a future update that will mean it can outrange them. This thing is not going up in BR by a crazy amount, by the way. Just let me find it for a second. Yeah, it's going up to 10.7. So it's going up by 1 BR bracket. 1 BR bracket. The difference between 10.3... What is the difference between 10.3 and 10.7 A8? Is it huge? No. It's not huge at all. So yeah, basically, we're also considering expanding the aircraft's arsenal with the AGM-123 Skipper 2. If you don't know what this thing is, by the way, once active radar homing missiles come in, what do you think is going to be the next thing? Of course, it's going to be, anti-radiation missiles. Just before, like, all the videos come out, like, speculating what's going to come next, of course it's going to be that, right? Obviously. So, what's the AGM-123 Skipper 2? Imagine you take a bomb, Mark 83, I believe. You add the paveway guidance system to it, and then, just because you're bored, and you realize that stuff needs an extra distance to it, you attach a rocket to the back. So this is a rocket-propelled, laser-guided bomb. Now, we already, I believe, have one of these in the game for France. I don't know how often you see it, but yeah. So, you are upping its BR by a very small amount, by an incredibly small amount, and then giving it access to a bomb, which, remember, it's a premium, so therefore, it'll be able to get it, fully blast. And this can be used to combat air defense systems and hit targets from distances greater than regular freefall bombs. So you're upping its BR, and then you're going, okay, it's going to face better aim systems. I would love to know which systems these are. I'd love to know. Is it the Flak Panzer? What are these 10.7, 11.0 AA systems? The Tungi? That's pretty much it, innit? I don't think there's anything else. Maybe the automatic, yeah, because you see that so many times. Right? Fantastic, right? And then you also don't have a lineup with this thing, so it doesn't even matter anyway. So then, yeah, the Maverick was not used on this variant. That was used on the SWIP. But yeah, so right now, it is very effective against AA defenses. So what we're going to do is we're going to up its BR, and then we're going to make it better. This is what we call the IPM-1 scenario. So if you don't know what happened with the IPM-1, the IPM-1 is a vehicle which, obviously it's in War Thunder, right? The vehicle has a 105mm on it, but it also had more extra stuff compared to the standard M1 Abrams. It was too good at its BR. Its efficiency was too high. So they upped its BR. You know what they decided to do? Alright, we've upped its BR. Might need a reload buff too. So, gave it a bit of a reload buff. And then, on top of it, they gave it a mega round. But that's the main thing. The reload buff might have actually come later on. But they gave it a mega round because they're like, okay, it's just doing way too good at its current BR. So we have to increase its BR. But because we're increasing its BR and it's going to face other things, we got to give it a better round. You know what happened the next update? It went up in BR again. And then it became better than the M1A1 because of its reload, comparing the 105 to the 120. Now, both of them have the same reload, because people don't know how to play the Abrams. So, yeah, now we're just in this wonderful doldrums where you don't know where the balanced vehicle is, and you're going to just go through multiple different changes. I'm not even going to bother chatting about this, the SU-25-25K thing. This is a gross misunderstanding of how this vehicle is used, and also its effectiveness on the battlefield. Okay? If you do not understand why the fact that this thing doesn't, even though it doesn't have fire and forget weapons, even though it technically does because CCIP exists, which for some reason we're just deciding CCIP just doesn't exist anymore, that, like, you can fire those rockets from miles away. They overpressure things when they don't even hit them, which was the problem with the damn Nords back in the day. But for some reason, this stuff is just allowed to do it. Oh, it doesn't have a targeting pod. Who cares? It goes up against AAs that can't efficiently stop it because it hardly makes sound and its heat signature is tiny and it has a million countermeasures. Okay? I'm not even going to bother talking about the SU-25 because it's one of those things that's talked to death and it's just annoying. This vehicle will never be balanced. None of these vehicles will ever be balanced. I talked about it from day one. These vehicles are screwed. right? They're never going to be balanced in the game. And they're going to come up with all the different excuses to say what they need to do with them. Whether it's giving them crazy weaponry, whether it's going, oh, well, they just don't go fast enough, bro. And because they don't go fast enough, we have to give them all of these different things to try and help them out. That means they have massively high variance on how effective they are in battle. That is why they're annoying as hell to fight. Because half the time, they're useless. And the other half of the time, you can't stop them. It's the problem with helicopters. It's the problem with vehicles like this, and it's a pain, and it's been a pain for the longest time in War Thunder, and you will never do anything about it because you can't. You can't. You screwed it. You screwed it by adding these things with the weapons that they have, and now you can't take them away. So stuff like the A6, the SU, the A10, they're all always going to be screwed. Forever and ever and ever. And I talked about this 3 bloody years ago. Such a silly maneuver, but here we are. Doesn't matter how many times you balance them. Doesn't matter how many times you move them around. It's not going to matter. Because they will be very good in very specific circumstances, and people will learn how to abuse those specific circumstances. The only way to fix it is by raising them up in BR, making them completely worthless. And you'll never do that because half of them are bloody premiums. Aircraft with all aspect IR missiles. Hey, everything I just said like 5 minutes ago, apply it to this too, because it's the same problem, so I'm not even going to bother. Future plans. We'd like to reiterate that the separation of battle ratings for lower ranked vehicles will be carried out as part of our future plan battle rating changes. Yep, this is the 3rd time that they've mentioned this. Just in case it hasn't been hammered into your skull enough, this is the 3rd time you have to hear it. We'll also be monitoring the performance, and any changes may be revised as part of the planned battle rating changes if the efficiency of changed aircraft becomes too low, too high. Really? You know what? I thought this was the final battle rating change. I thought we were never going to have one in the future. I thought we were done. I thought this was just going to be the last one, just never to be seen again. You're telling me that you're going to constantly change battle ratings? No way. I can't believe that. You've never done that in 10 years. The problem with this post is it reads like baby's first kind of dev blog or baby's first community post. And I get why they do it, because unfortunately if they don't do it, you get a bunch of people who wander around and say very ridiculous things. And it's just sad. But I'm getting kind of tired of it, man. I don't like being treated as a kid. But it's just how it goes. These decisions that you've made here are not going to make people feel good. They are just going to anger, especially when it comes to stuff like this. It's not going to change. Because you can't balance these vehicles. You have trapped yourself in a corner. And by putting out post and post and post and description and description and description and essays and essays, it does not change that fact. In order to balance those vehicles, you would have to do a lot to the game. Even with these separate BRs. And you are unwilling to do it. So it doesn't matter. Let's actually have a look at the BR changes they've added, because there are a bunch of them that they've added that they didn't talk about. So not really a surprise. The SU-27 and MiG-29, they're both going down in ground. Doesn't really make a difference. Then obviously the nets is going to 12-0, and all of the F-16s are staying at 12-0. Even the ADF, you know, the great ground. You know how they said that they in one of the things. They actually talk about how they use ground, kind of like in the ground game mode, right? The Combined Arms game mode. They look at the efficiency of air vehicles going after ground vehicles first, compared to their air-to-air performance. So please tell me why the F-16A ADF is the same BR as the other F-16s, since it cannot attack the ground. Who knows? Who knows? No idea. But it's based on feedback. And the great thing about writing this holy word here, or holy sentence, is you can't question it. Because another community member has said this. And if you do this, you are labeled as a person who hates the community. How do I know this? Because I've been labeled many times after disagreeing with what people have said the same thing. It's incredibly annoying. The F4EJ is going down. I don't know why. Probably because it only has dumb bombs. The MiG-23s are going down. Doesn't matter. F4J is going down. Doesn't matter. There are better stuff that you chuck there. 10-7 for these guys. Same thing. Same with these guys. Once again, these are all just air superiority fighters, so it's fine with that. F104J going down. Sure. I suppose. I suppose it's because the other ones are going down. They must have forgotten the F104J exists. AMX is going up by 1 BR bracket when it should be going up to 2, which is a bit silly. Super Etondad is going up by 2, even though it has the same efficiency as the AMX. But, you know, I suppose they just hate France. How about we just bring that narrative back? Always fun. Always enjoyable. Then we have the Q5L going up, which is fine. It makes sense. And then, as I said before, they are increasing the A4s to 9.3 instead of 9.7. So will this make a huge difference? I mean, we'll see. You know, I mean, you could definitely say it was drastic, the changes that they made here, but they needed to be. The more interesting thing for me is to actually see what happens in this column in terms of the AIT. Well, not really the AIT. The AIT's fine at 9.3 and but at 8.7, these guys do really struggle. So I wonder if they'll put them down, especially now with the MiG-15 and the Sabre going down too. So yeah, I'm more interested to see what happens here. A lot of these changes are completely fine, and, you know, they make sense, especially when you have a look at the dumb bomb, guided bomb thing. Their justifications are hilarious in a lot of cases, and that is the problem with this. Placation only leads to negativity, because what you realize is the vast majority of people who are responding to feedback are people who are looking for positive changes for the things that they play and only react when they are negatively affected by changes. So if you actually want a balanced opinion or balanced view of these things, you will never get it from a place like the forums or just generally social media. Social media is designed for people to react to negative things. Therefore, if you see a positive thing, you are less likely to interact with it than you are a negative thing. This is a problem with society, but it also extends to games. For some reason, this simple psychological issue is not known by the people who are putting together these things. But c'est la vie, it doesn't seem to matter. So, the main thing to take away from this is if you need justifications, the justifications are here. If you need other words, they're probably also here too, because there's so damn many of them. The last thing to note is a bunch of the vehicles that they were going to balance. We're going to have to wait an extra 3 months to see them properly balanced. And then by then, as I said, there'll be a minor update and also a major update as well. So they probably won't be balanced then either. As always, I hope you have a wonderful day. I'll see you next time.
I'd just like to thank GMG Smiley, CD Beans, Chieftain Mike, EMN3 Galaxy, Tulio Pontecorvo, Brendan Quinn, Carrion Crow, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Wartinder, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Ozzy Panzer, Alan Hacker, Liam Shear, Opium Prime, Lafouche, Sem, Aslan, Uncle Bean, and Derek R. for supporting the channel.